Hello my friends and fellow VEDSies. So despite how much I personally adore it, the 2009 version of The Electric Company isn't exactly one of those kid shows that is held in particularly high esteem. I mean, yes, it did win 10 daytime Emmys, but you don't really see people talk about it the way they talk about its contemporaries. Like, really, I don't see anyone talking about it. Except for myself, of course. And it's a shame. It was a wonderfully wacky show and a lot of great people came out of it. Like, not to be a hipster, but I liked William Jackson Harper before it was cool. But even as someone who loves the show and is talking about it over a decade later, it has some problems. And the most obvious problem is season 3. So what happened? Was it one of those things where there was a drastic change in the creative team? Not really. Really, the only big change was in the cast. See, Jenny Barber was unavailable for season 3, so the beloved sweetheart of the company and arch rival of several pranksters, Lisa Heffenbacher, could not be in that season. Which meant that our heroes going into this season would be the Ruiz siblings, Hector and Jessica, as well as Keith Watson. This would have been really awkward because literally everyone is a third wheel in this situation. Hector is older than the other two. Keith is not related to the other two. Jessica is not a jock and also a girl. It would have been awkward if it was just the three of them. So they needed to add a new member to the Electric Company, which is fine. The show opens with Keith joining, so adding somebody is an established thing that can happen. You know, while we're here, might as well add a new prankster, that could be fun. So at the beginning of season 3, we're introducing 2 brand new characters, a hero and a villain. I'm going to start with the one who did work and use that to highlight why the other one didn't. And by extension, what could have been done to make the character that didn't work actually work. So season 3 begins with Lisa explaining everything that's changed in the neighborhood since we were last there, as well as people to watch out for. She explains that Francine has a personal assistant, a young girl named Gilda Flip. Gilda lives in the same apartment building as Francine and totally looks up to her, and Francine has decided to take advantage of this. Conceptually, this is pretty solid. We know that Francine is the type of person who would love a personal assistant. She loves attention, and her mother's a CEO. We also know that Francine likes to use her vlogs to warp reality into what she wants it to be, and people fall for it all the time. The idea that a little girl would completely fall for it, even after Francine gets disproven again and again and again, is completely believable within the universe. Hell, we even know Francine and Gilda's apartment building. It's the main location of the episode Out to Launch. All of this immediately ties Gilda into the world in general and Francine specifically. They also made sure to give her some pretty likable traits. She's intelligent, but not enough so that she realizes that she should be in charge. She's talented, but she's not a braggart or a show-off. She's a stick in the mud, but for the cause of chaos. And she's a people pleaser. She's just a very likable young girl. Okay, but they probably use her way too much, right? Like, from the moment she's introduced, she's used constantly. Actually, no. There are 12 episodes in season 3, and she is in 6 of them. Although, really, the only one where she's a major focus is A Fistful of Confetti. And honestly, they could have put her in more episodes. She totally could have been with the pranksters at the Word Ball games. It's kind of weird that she isn't with Francine at Tip It or Dip It or the junior assistant, if we're being honest. But they showed restraint with Gilda, not putting her in every episode, and so she didn't feel obtrusive. Even when she's spending time with Annie instead of Francine, it feels like, ooh, we get to see this character bounce off of someone different and not like they're trying to cram her down our throats. So they did a great job of making Gilda likable and fit well into the world. But unfortunately, she was not the only new character. Let's talk about good old Marty Farms. I mean, Marcus Barnes. Marcus is introduced in the same spiel as Gilda, but there really isn't an explanation of who he is. Just that he's going to be important. Hell, his introduction is literally him playing baseball by himself. Who does that? He's not someone's sibling or classmate or mentee. He just kind of exists now. And unlike Gilda, who the narrative acknowledges is being exploited and it's weird that this high schooler is hanging out with this middle schooler, Marcus is hanging out with two high schoolers and a college student and nobody thinks it's weird. Okay, but did they at least make him likable? Well, he's hyperactive, he has a hard time making decisions, and he can't tell presidents apart, and he's hungry all the time, and he's extremely gullible even by the standards of this show. I don't even know if some of those are really personality traits and not just, you know, random facts about this character. And you remember how I mentioned the baseball scene where he's playing baseball by himself? Yeah, he doesn't play baseball again in the entire show. Only really even one other episode where he does anything particularly jockish, and that's playing football with Jessica. It's not like he's a jock like Hector and Keith where they're bonding over it. It's just another thing he does. Now, if you're watching this and you haven't actually seen The Electric Company, first off, I'm a little sorry, but you might be thinking, Tessa, well, that does sound like a particularly annoying character, especially when replacing someone so beloved as Lisa. Surely he can't be that bad. Surely he isn't bad enough to justify this entire video being about him. He can't be that bad, right? And you know what? You're probably right. Marcus was just this hyperactive comic relief character who had a couple episodes focused on him. We wouldn't be here right now. But that is distinctly not the case. Because while other people do get the focus in a couple episodes in season 3, Marcus gets 7 out of the 12. For context, Keith is the main focus of 4 episodes in total across all 3 seasons. And in 3 of those 7 episodes, Marcus is the root of the problem and the pranksters are just exploiting him. And off target, he can't focus, and Francine is exploiting that to try and ensure that he doesn't become a member of the Electric Company. In Spooky Summer Soiree, it's his indecision that has stopped him and Jessica from getting costumes, which lets Annie buy all of the costumes. And Francine wasn't even thinking about the Electric Company during the incredible return of all. She was just running a scam, and he was dumb enough to believe it. No hypnotism, no weird magical mishaps, no alien shenanigans, just a middle schooler who keeps making dumb mistake after dumb mistake. As a result of this, the conflicts are getting sillier and sillier, and our villains, who are already parodies of traditional supervillains, seem way less competent. So, what can we learn from this, and how can we apply that to a hypothetical rewrite of season 3? 1, when you're introducing a new character, they need to make sense in the world. I think if I were creating a new character, I would have gone for a Guion, honestly. They're really fun and interesting, plus they're super naive, so you could have the pranksters scam them and it would totally make sense. Jessica could know them because she's the junior ambassador. And you know, maybe they go to high school with Jessica and Keith, or are a grade older or a grade younger. That way it seems reasonable that they're friends with them, and then it's just introducing this person to Hector. Or maybe they're a new employee at the Electric Diner. I am stealing this from a fic, but it's a good setup for introducing a new character. It's a setting they're in all of the time, so we wouldn't question this person being there and being friends with everyone. It could even be that kid who was in the first episode that Keith said maybe one day he'd get the power. That would be perfect foreshadowing. Also, I've said they a few times, but I think it probably would have been best if Lisa's replacement was a girl, because 3 guys, 1 girl, not the vibe. 2, give your character a distinct personality. Marcus came at the height of LOL random humor. He just said stuff. Instead, we would want this hypothetical character to be more solid than that. I'm thinking they're naive due to their upbringing, but they're working on it. Because they're Sklekian, they have unusual talents and customs, but it brings in fresh perspective to the group. And since the group is pretty extrovert and or jock heavy, I think there should be an introverted nerd. And potentially shyness is a problem that they have to work on. These are pretty basic traits. Obviously, I'm not diving deep into their psyche. This is the Electric Company after all. But it feels a little more solid than whatever the fuck Marcus's personality was supposed to be. 3. Give your heroes and villains reasons to fight. No one actually has any beef with Marcus or Gilda. And that's fine for Gilda, because the Electric Company aren't trying to deal with her, she's getting in the way. But the pranksters are actively going after Marcus with no real personal vendetta or any real reason to be threatened by this 11-year-old. Since Francine, Annie, and Manny have established rivalries, I think it would be fun if Danny had an arch-nemesis, even if that arch-nemesis had absolutely no reason to be his arch-nemesis. He thinks they're arch-nemeses, and that's what's important. 4. Make them competent, especially if people aren't going to think of them that way. All the players in a story need a certain level of power, whether it's influence or presence or literal superpowers. And while it varies from person to person, each member of the Electric Company and the pranksters has a certain threat level to the others. And we see that all the time in the first 2 seasons. Jessica understands that she can't let her agitation in a crisis show in Unmuffins because snapping at Danny will just lead to more trouble. Lisa and Annie being inverses of each other allows for them to really go head to head in interesting ways. It's even just in how often the Ruiz siblings' special skills come in handy. Marcus doesn't really have any fear or respect attached to himself. And that's fine in the beginning. He's the newcomer. Of course they're not going to take him seriously. But his power doesn't help. Like Keith, Marcus's power is there to help the young viewers visualize concepts. But unlike Keith, Marcus's power pretty much only does that. He can make numbers. Everyone else can also make numbers, but his thing is numbers. And like I said, he's not striking fear into the heart of the pranksters. The entire point of Prankster Holiday is that Manny and Danny don't take him as a threat to their chaos. So if the skill has to be math-based, make it better than just Keith, but only for math. Maybe throwing a number can create a cage that's that many sides. Maybe the illusory money that's used to explain how coins work can be put on the sidewalk, so in the middle of a chase scene, a prankster stops and goes to pick up a penny, but it's not real. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just using the skill for things other than kindergarten math will make it feel cool and useful in universe. And eventually, the other characters will learn to respect the person who wields that power. And last, but certainly not least, don't overwhelm us with your new character. Now, of course, you have to spend time introducing your new character, but you can't just shove them down our throats every single episode. Marcus got over half of season 3, and that is just way too much time. In my little thought experiment version of season 3, 2 or 3 of those episodes would be given to other characters. Probably at least one of them to Keith. Just, to give the audience a little more breathing room. This would make the season read less like Marcus and his amazing friends and more like, well, the company. Season 3 of The Electric Company has a lot of tonal dissonance with the first 2 seasons. Instead of being an ensemble show about a group of superpowered teenagers facing off against their cartoonish rivals, where there's magic and aliens, fantastical technology, devious schemes, hypnotism. Season 3 is about a middle schooler who ends up in trouble because he's a dumb middle schooler. Other teens either help him or exploit him. And as the stakes are lowered in that way, so is the creativity and, weirdly enough, even the educational material. Instead of teaching things like compromise, persevere, investigate, and signing petitions, season 3 teaches zeros and coins and counting by 5s. And it's a real shame because those first 2 seasons were really great, wacky fun, and there's no reason why season 3 couldn't have been the same way. Had they made some smarter decisions around Marcus, season 3 would have been the right kind of silly, not the dumb kind of silly. And I think people would look back on the show with a lot more fondness. I don't know, it might just be me though, overthinking a show that nobody else cares about.